Okay, so where are we now? We've started measuring the numbers within our business. We've identified what it's going to look like when it's finished. We've got some time management strategies in place, and we're providing excellent customer service. We're going to get really, really busy. Now, this is a good place to be at this point in time because we've taken chaos out of the equation and we've started monitoring what's going on so we know where to focus our energies. The next phase of our journey is to move into structure for growth. Now, structure for growth within an organisation means that we've got to start somewhere with building the business beyond ourselves or beyond our current capacity. And this usually happens through marketing. Now, when we think about marketing, we often think about advertising. But I'm going to suggest something to you. When we start thinking about marketing our business, we've got to think in terms of more than just advertising. We've got to think in terms of getting our existing clients to come back. We're going to be thinking in terms of profitability of our marketing. So making sure that we can actually move ourselves into a niche market. What do I mean by niche? It's an area where there's no price competition. Now, how many of you out there would love to be in a situation where you're not competing on price? Well, I can suggest to you there is a method to getting there. There is a method to making sure our marketing lifts us away from our competitors so we can charge pretty much what we like for our service, which makes us highly, highly profitable. Now, let's talk about the two key numbers that you need to actually have to make marketing effective. The first one is this one. Now, we talk about this term acquisition cost, and some people know what it means, but very few people actually measure what this is. So in terms of marketing, what is acquisition cost? It's simply how much you pay to buy a client. Now, if you can't tell me that number to the cent, you're probably not measuring it. How do you measure acquisition cost? Pretty simple. What you do is you look at all the expenses within your business, going back to the numbers that are related to marketing and sales. You divide the number of new clients that you've generated by that number, and then what happens, or the other way around, you divide that number by the number of new clients you've generated, and what happens is you'll start to identify how much you're paying per client. Now, why is this so important to know in marketing? Because, see, marketing is a numbers game. And most people think it's all about being creative and it's all about, where should I advertise? My answer to that is pretty simple. Once you know what your acquisition cost is, how you answer the question, where should I advertise, is dependent on how much it costs you to acquire a new client. So your acquisition cost should dictate where you invest your money. Now think about this. Marketing is seen as an expense in your profit and loss, as an expense. And when you're in business and you have an expense column in your profit and loss and things start to tighten up, you go to see your accountant, and what does the accountant do? They say, you need to cut your expenses, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because marketing is an expense. So we cut our marketing expense, we reduce our sales force. Guess what happens to the business? It gets smaller. We go back to the accountant and say, it's getting tougher out there, we're not getting more clients, we're getting less. And he says, keep cutting until we kill our marketing budget. Now, I'll suggest for most of you out there, you probably don't even have a marketing budget. And the reason is because it's an expense. And as an expense, we don't want to spend the money, or we don't have the money. Now, let's imagine we can convert your marketing from an expense to an investment. Now, what's the difference? It's pretty simple. An investment is something that produces a return, whereas an expense is a one-way ticket, right? When you spend money on something, it's gone. When you invest money in something, you expect a return. So by measuring these numbers like acquisition cost, we can evaluate the return on investment in our marketing. Who out there would like an unlimited marketing budget? I'm sure most of you love this unlimited marketing budget. How do you get one? Start measuring some numbers. The first one is acquisition cost. The second one is lifetime value. Now, what do I mean by lifetime value? Really simple. Lifetime value refers to how much does a client spend with you in a lifetime. Now, you must measure both these numbers, because as you measure both these numbers, you'll very quickly understand whether your marketing is an expense or an investment. Now, if your marketing is working well for you, which it will be if you measure it, because if it's not working, you'll change it, it'll start to return capital, return cash, return on investment, which means every time I buy a client, if I know how much they're going to spend with me in a lifetime, I see it as a return. Now, if I offered you $2 for every dollar that you gave me, how much would you give me? For most people, they say, well, it depends, when am I going to get it, or is it a true story? The truth of the matter is, this is your marketing strategy right here. when you know the numbers and you know for every dollar you put in, you get $2 back, all of a sudden the dynamics change. So instead of marketing being an expense, it's an investment. And if you knew that return, you'd be putting in as much money as you could get your hands on. So if you do not have a big marketing budget, the only reason is you're either at capacity, which means that you're in chaos, or you don't know these numbers, which means you're not sure where to invest. Because when you find a marketing strategy that returns that sort of money, it's the best investment you're ever going to find. Now, let's talk a bit further about this, because once we get these two numbers, it's not enough to know them. We actually have to work on these, because this one here, acquisition cost, our goal should be to reduce that number. How do we reduce it? We test new marketing strategies, we measure the return, we measure the acquisition cost, cost per lead, cost per client, and we identify how to reduce that. This one down here, what do we do with lifetime value? Pretty simple. We need to extend the amount of time that a client spends with us. Now we can do this by increasing the number of transactions, by actually having new products. There's so many different ways we can work on these two numbers, but if you remember that marketing is mathematics, and all we need to do is know these two numbers, we can convert our marketing from an expense into an investment. Now the reason you want to do this as structure for growth is because when I have an unlimited marketing budget, all of a sudden I now have a commercial business. What I mean by that is when things are quiet, I can turn the volume up on my marketing. When things are busy, I can turn it back down. So I'm not relying on just word of mouth. I've actually got structure in place and I have a marketing plan. Doing this means we can now start controlling what happens next, because the next part of building the business is when we can control our marketing, which means if we need more clients, we just invest money. Now we can start looking at the next step, which is actually building a, change colors, building a system. Now you'll notice that I put system in here, but most people are thinking, well, if I'm getting that much work in the door, I just need to employ more people, right? But the employing of more people is actually step number 3. And the reason it's step number 3 is that I would never employ people unless I know exactly what I expect them to do. Because as with marketing being an investment, so should our team. Which means if I'm paying wages to someone, I need to know exactly how much work they can produce to give me a return on investment of my money. Because if I'm not doing that, if all I'm doing is employing team members because I'm busy, then what's going to happen is I'm going to run out of cash again. So make sure that we work on our systems first. Now, what does systems mean in this context? It's simple. It's making sure that I know exactly what I want people to do, key result areas, and I know exactly how to measure their performance so that I can understand the path for growth.